Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So Tucker Carlson was at an event recently for Turning Point USA and he was invited to speak, and he touched upon the subject of boys and girls sports. And apparently he was quite dismissive of how serious this topic is and gave the impression that there are more important topics to be focused on. There are more important things to be demanding than worrying about boys and girls sports.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
So I'm going to react to the speech and let's take a look.
If you deny people what they actually want long enough and instead substitute things that you claim they should want, like bombing Iran, I'm not for Iran, where you spend all day telling me that it's so important that, boys not playing girls' soccer teams, whatever. I agree. I hate the tranny stuff passionately. I think you should keep the boys off girls' soccer teams. But I don't know. It kind of feels like you're feeding me appetizers. At some point, I want to look around and see a better country.
Okay, so he's saying boys and women's sports is just something that is there to distract from the real issues, from the things that people really want. And he's conflating the decision to bomb Iran with boys and women's sports, like it's just something that we're told we want, but we don't really want. Now, when it comes to Iran, I know a lot of people are very nervous about that. A lot of people didn't agree with that decision because it just gave the impression that we were closer to World War III when we make these sort of moves. Now, I think people have calmed down about it and maybe some have changed their minds and just, trust Trump to get on with it. But others, didn't agree with it. I don't think it's fair to conflate the two because obviously most people agree that boys shouldn't compete in girls' sports. But I understand there are different topics that other people are going to prioritize. And clearly he doesn't think it's that important. He's like, yeah, get the boys out of girls' sports. I agree with that. Yeah. He comes across as very dismissive. And it's almost like how Simone Biles approached Riley Gaines and people who have told her, you're just a sore loser. This is all about you coming fifth, isn't it? And that situation with Simone Biles really highlighted that it's much deeper than that.
Does it get more perverted than being in a shower, which is typical for a swimming locker room, especially you're in the chlorine, you get out, you're in the pool 5 times a day, you rinse off. Does it get more perverted than standing in the shower, totally undressed, when a 6'4" man approaches you, stands in the shower head next to you, undresses himself, fully naked, fully intact, and watches you shower? That's the context I was drawing. And to me, that is sexual abuse. What me and my teammates had to go through was certainly sexual abuse.
What we're talking about is that women were subjected to abuse. Girls were subjected to abuse. And ever since then, as it's been allowed to continue, they have essentially tried to normalize SA against children and women in the name of gender ideology. And this has affected so many aspects of our lives. Our education system is messed up because now people can't even say what a woman is. Kids don't even know how many genders there are. So it's not just about let the girls have their medals, let the girls play against each other. Look at that boy, he's huge. How can he play on the girls' team? It's not just about that. In order to allow boys into girls' sports, they're also allowed into the locker room. And that's a whole other set of issues that have been created as a result. Girls being forced to undress in front of boys. That's a very serious topic on the par with all these other serious topics that should never be ignored. And I feel it's kind of like when we talk about cancer, there's someone saying, well, what about heart disease? So I certainly don't see the issue of women's sports as a distraction from the more important things, because I believe children being subjected to abuse and preventing that has to be one of the priorities. And we can have different priorities. We can have different areas of focus. They're still just as important as one another. And when we have victories here and there in women's sports, we've still got a way to go, but we have had some victories. I'm not going to despise those victories just because I'm looking at a lack of progress in other areas.
I want to see a country I recognize. I don't want to see people sleeping on the sidewalk. I don't see people ODing on drugs. I want to know where those drugs coming from. Why can't you stop it? You've got the U.S. military. Don't you have SEAL Team 6? What are they doing today? Don't you have Delta Force? You could give me another segment about how impressive the U.S. military is? I believe you. Why aren't they employed to make my country better? Why are my cities disgusting? I don't want to go there. It smells like weed and halal food. And you're lecturing me about how it's a great moral victory that I kicked the boys off the girls' soccer team? Good, I'm so glad. But let's do the real stuff, like making New York livable. And create an economy where my kids can have kids. How about this? How about we just make the measure really super simple? Can my children have without the benefit of like the great luck I have had, can they have a roughly approximate life that I had? Or how about just a middle-class life? Can they like get married young, as I did, and like have 4 kids and, you know, take a couple jobs, work hard and all that stuff? But in the end, it's like, fine. Can they do that? Or is that like so remote a possibility that you need to tell me that Iran is the real threat to take my mind off the fact that you stole all the money and screwed up my country beyond recognition?
So to me, it just sounds like he was ranting, to be honest. He was airing his grievances of what he's disappointed about when it comes to what this administration has achieved so far. And that's fine. And I agree with a lot of what he said there. We do want that for our children. We want our children to have the opportunities that we had, plus more. We want our cities to be safe and to not be hellholes, of course. But that doesn't mean that we should despise the fight to save women's sports, because it's not just about sports. It's about safety, which he claims that he cares about. That starts at school. That starts on the field. That starts in the locker room for our children, for our young girls. And it seems like he wants to talk about what he thinks this administration should be doing, like utilizing our military for domestic issues, not just for foreign wars. But he's throwing women under the bus in doing so by saying, this is just a trivial matter. Let the women have their medals. Okay, great. Now can we move on to the real issues? That's what it sounds like to me. And again, it seems like somebody who hasn't got a clue, even though he's reported on these stories, because he did used to be a reporter for Fox. So he has reported on these stories. But again, I think he needs to look beyond the Leah Thomas story, and he needs to look beyond Riley Gaines coming 5th and not getting the trophy. I think protecting our kids from abuse, protecting our kids from gender ideology, which involves telling them they're in the wrong body and getting them to question their very gender or their sex. The same people who are all for gender ideology are the same people who vote for open borders, who vote for soft on crime policies. It all comes from the same source. So when we hear about boys being banned from girls' sports, executive orders being signed, laws being changed, that is that ideology slowly dying. And that should be celebrated, whether it's in laws pertaining to women's sports or laws pertaining to drugs, laws pertaining to crime and sentencing and all of those things. It's a victory. And they're all linked, essentially, because radical leftist policies basically result in the same outcome. Reduced security, reduced safety, reduced economic opportunities, because that's bad. You know, capitalism's so bad. You know, it's all linked. So you're not going to catch me despising any victory when it comes to the fight against these radical leftist ideologies. So he wanted to say what he thinks needs to be addressed and how he thinks this administration should handle things and the things that he thinks this administration has done wrong, such as Iran. And don't fob me off with, well, look what we've done in girls' sports. We signed an executive order, you know, a victory that isn't really that big of a deal. But to the girls who don't want to be in a locker room with a boy, to the girls who have had state championships stolen from them, to the parents who have seen their daughters injured at the hands of a male athlete in their category, to the girls who lost scholarships to boys, or the ones who have been trapped in a locker room with a boy, forced to get undressed in front of a boy by school administrators. Yeah, that's how insane things have got. Girls who are forced to be in the locker room with their tennis coach. It may not be a big deal to Tucker. He's more concerned about Iran, and that's fine. But to those girls, it is a big deal. And I don't think you should look down on the victories that have been made. And more still needs to be done. And until it is written in the law that boys cannot compete in girls' sports, boys cannot go into the women's locker room under the guise of identifying as a girl, so that even these blue states cannot do it, cannot allow it. We're still going to talk about it. And if I was Tucker, I'd be more concerned about my interviewing skills, because the interview he did with Andrew Tate leaves a lot to be desired.
Face charges, which include human trafficking, rape, and forming a criminal gang to sexually exploit women.
Are they accusing you of using violence or?
No. They're accusing me of using the lover boy method, coercing them by being nice.
And quite frankly, he seemed very starstruck. Maybe he could have done a little more digging, read some of the court documents, and not allowed Andrew to lie to his face. Preventing the abuse of women and girls may not be a priority to some, but to many, it is a fundamental issue. So what do you think of Tucker's speech? Do you agree with him? Do you think we could be concerned about all of those topics? One doesn't have to negate the other. So thanks for watching. Like, comment and subscribe. Take care of yourselves, and God willing, I will see you in the next video.